Cool. So let's get underway. So this is the crystals transmission. That's what I have named it. So it's about a lot more than crystals, but crystals are a part of it. And I actually had this impulse a while ago, which was like to fully reclaim New Age. Like, you know, because there's a lot of critique of New Age, right? That it's like New Age is super kind of woo-woo, and but to like really fucking stand in that and be like, yes, we are bringing the New Age, you know, like in a way that's like integrated and alive and embodied. Like, yes, this is the fucking New Age. We're standing for that. So let's have that alive with us as we journey into Crystal Land today. Okay, so let's just have a little alignment to begin. So just find a posture. Just take some deep breaths down into your belly. And I invite you to tune in to the 3 seeds of the dark light, the 3 portals to the dark light in your system, your crown, your heart, and your base. And just see if you can tune in to the presence of the dark light current. First in your crown is the will force of your soul, the lightning current of your soul's will through your open crown, pouring in from your overshadowing soul body. And all you need to do is just tune in, bring your awareness there to feel as you remain open. And then tune into your base. See if you can just have a moment to touch in, reconnect to the dark light current anchored in your base. A pulse of power and freedom, ecstatic love and creativity. And then tune into your heart. Just see if you can feel or sense the vibration of the dark light current through your heart. The ecstatic current of life itself. The roar of the one. And power and love and manifesting force. And then just see if you can start to feel your own body mind as an earth. Your crown is your North Pole. Your base is your South Pole. And your heart is the dark core of your earth. And then just see if you can feel through your own body mind, your own earth, the planet. Feel through your crown, your North Pole, the North Pole of the planet, through your base, the South Pole of the planet, through your heart, the core of the earth. And start to see if you can feel the earth as an energetic being. With the pulses of energy moving through its central channel, from pole to pole, through its heart. As that core that your heart is interpenetrating, radiates dark light, life force in all directions, energizing the core of all life on the planet. And deep breath. And you can let that go as you feel ready. Stretch out your body as your body desires. Make your earth comfortable. Okay, so that little alignment was really seeded in this transmission of the connection between the crown of the earth and the North Pole, the base of the earth and the South Pole, and the core of the earth as the earth's heart center, where its monadic energy is anchored. That was really seeded in this transmission, and in the transmission that Bruce released today, DK goes a whole bunch more into that. So gives us a gorgeous meditation, which we'll use on Sunday for the full moon meditation. So we'll get into that bit of how you're an earth, as well as the earth. It's all one energetic pattern piece a bit later. But he starts this transmission basically talking about the second initiation. And it's a super important passage. So as you all know, because we've touched on it other times, just as we go through soul initiations, the understanding is the planet is going through soul initiations as well, but on a much, 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 much vaster scale. And it's the same pattern. So the planet's going through the second cosmic initiation. And it's a cosmic initiation because it's a cosmic entity moving through that initiation. And at the same time, there's a really, really, really large number of human beings on the path who are going through the second initiation. And basically, it's going to be a huge deal for the positive transformation and the landing of all the good stuff on the planet when a lot of those beings complete the second initiation. Because the whole path moves a bunch faster after that. And that also relates to what will happen with the planet, because as the planet moves through the second initiation, he says, just as is the case for a human being, there will be rapid evolutionary progress that happens after that. So let's just first start with the second initiation and what that's all about. So as you guys know, because you've heard me talk about initiation stuff in the past, probably at some point, the first initiation is really where a being has enough of the sense that this is a sacred universe trickle down from their soul consciousness into their regular consciousness to start to feel, hey, wait a minute, I think maybe this is a sacred universe. I think maybe actually this isn't just a meaningless pinball machine of random events that often move in shitty directions, but actually there's something to this whole thing that's worth me giving my energy and my time to actually develop in myself, because that's a meaningful thing. And I can unfold more of the authentic being that I truly am, and maybe even more of my soul, right? So it's where a being has that kind of dawn on their awareness, and they then pledge themselves to a path to unfold more of themselves. Put your hands up if you've been through that. Everyone on this call has been through that. If you have not been through that, I'm interested to know what brought you to this call. So, yeah, and there's like hundreds and hundreds of millions of people on the planet who have been through that already. That's like that's not a kind of exotic thing, right, these days. But think about it. 100 years ago, that probably was a bit of an exotic thing. Yeah, like where you just walked into a bar or whatever, or a library when those still existed, and you kind of met someone who was like, yeah, I do yoga every day, like, because I want to unfold more of who I am. It would probably be like, wow, who's this person? Like, what's going on here? Whereas today, it's like, all right, I go to the class around the corner. So, because everyone does yoga now. Not everyone, I don't do yoga. So, not such a big deal, right? Second initiation. And it's said that there's a long time. There's a bunch of lives between the first initiation and the second initiation. Second initiation, the way I describe it is it's basically like the soul goes through the bodhisattva vow. Do you know what the bodhisattva vow is? Like, give me a hand raise if you know what the bodhisattva vow. Okay. So in Buddhism, there is such a thing called like a being, before a being becomes a Buddha, they become a bodhisattva. And a bodhisattva is a being who basically, it's about like their motivation to attain enlightenment is for the benefit of all beings. So basically, the bodhisattva vow, it's like an actual ritual process that one goes through as one takes like formal Buddhist vows. And basically the vow is, this is now for everyone. Like, I'm in this now for everyone. Yeah. And that is contrasted within the Buddhist tradition. The earlier version of the tradition, Hinayana or Theravada Buddhism, doesn't actually have such a focus on that. It's like you're attaining enlightenment for your liberation, because this whole thing is worth getting out of. right? So the Bodhisattva vow, it's a fundamentally heart transformational process, because it's like you're here for everyone now. And my perspective on the second initiation is it's basically the soul goes through that process. I'm not talking now about like a formal Buddhist ritual. I'm talking about the soul, your soul, my soul, crossing a line where once it's crossed that line, now it's for everyone. Now, whatever happens, whatever step I take, whatever choices I make, whatever I decide to do with my life, even though I might get super fucking reactive and have a go at this person or whatever, have all my personality shit hanging out, whatever, right? Fundamentally, the anchor of my life is that I'm given to something for everyone now, right? Which is really where service becomes the fundamental instinct of the person's life. You could say the second initiation is like the crucifixion of the emotional body, whereas the fourth initiation is like the crucifixion of the soul. You could actually say the sixth initiation is like the crucifixion of the monad. But we'll leave that for another Wednesday, right? But because the second initiation is like, it's kind of like the crucifixion of the emotional body, it's basically said to be the hardest. It's the hardest initiation for a human being to go through. And what it involves is a deep conflict happens in the being between soul love and personal desire. And the completion of the second initiation is that the being's whole life from that point is run by their commitment to live according to the love of the soul. Yeah. So that doesn't mean that they do that all the time, but it means that that is their commitment. Whereas before, if you imagine first degree initiates, of which there are hundreds and hundreds of millions on the planet, it's still kind of about me. Yeah. Do you feel me? Like, it's still kind of like, yes, I'm on a path. I went to this Tony Robbins thing. It was great. Right. But like, it's still really about me. Oh my God, I had this incredible medicine ceremony. I had this experience, this experience, this experience, this experience, but it's still kind of just about me, really. Whereas the second initiation onwards, yes, a person still has personal process and personal development, personal healing and personal but really the anchor for what it's all dedicated to is now about love and about service and about their dedication to show up in the world as the soul that they are. So technically, in the language of technical esotericism, this is where Buddhi, the energy of Buddhi, which is the love level of the soul, flows into the astral body, flows into the emotional body, and illuminates, it illuminates all the stuff that isn't love, basically. Raise your hand, you've been through that process. It's kind of shocking, right? And it's why, one of the things that makes the second initiation so hard is that, when a being begins the second initiation, often what that comes with is a download around what their soul purpose is, and a super inspiring vision of what their life could look and feel like if they were to truly live from their soul. And they're like, wow, great, awesome, let's do this. Yeah. And okay, what's next? What's the next step that I take? And unfortunately for them, the next step that comes is like, well, here's all the stuff you're going to have to look at if you actually want to live that. And it's like, no, so, and that it's like, maybe you saw this thing that I wrote the other day. It's like a carrot on the stick type situation, right? So I kind of see like the soul basically like dangles this carrot on the stick in front of the donkey. You're the donkey, I'm the donkey, that keeps the being walking, right? And the thing is that the carrot on the stick is, it's like, sometimes I think about like, on game shows where they have like the mystery box. What's in the mystery box? Like, but it's like, this is what your life could look like. What's in the mystery box is, this is what your life could look like if you give everything to soul. And that calls the being and stirs them and motivates them and inspires them and touches them enough because they're ready for it, for them to be willing to walk through the valley. And walking through the valley is your shit, right? And my shit. Yeah. It's like, and this is why the second initiation, particularly in like the first half of it, is the most intense valley of the personal healing journey. And it's really where, this is where we get into trauma central, right? And it's a eruption of a person's deepest traumas. And there's this one passage in some of the Bailey stuff where the Tibetan master is writing letters and giving teachings to students individually. And there's this one student who's basically in the valley of the second initiation, like in the hardest point of it. And he says to the student, you need to understand that you are navigating and processing the emotion of the second initiation. You're not just having a really fucking hard time in a way, which is just like, there's a bunch of people in the world who are going through difficult emotional stuff. He's like, no. But that's not what's happening for you. You're going through the emotional processing of the second initiation. And what that involves, my friend, is you're processing your unprocessed stuff from all lifetimes, like up until now. So, yes, it may come in the apparent form of my parent stuff and, my relationship stuff and, like whatever else it is. But these are just like the forms that it comes in this life for what you're processing, which is your unprocessed stuff from all lifetimes. That's a big deal, right? So, this is where the path can become incredibly dark, actually, and sticky and muddy and hard. And because the being has enough dedication to soul to be willing to look at all the personality traumas, dramas, complexes, contractions, ways they avoid themselves and avoid their integrity and avoid truth and avoid the truth of their heart and avoid like soul, right? And it's fucking horrifying. Like, it's horrible. Yeah. And the way I describe it sometimes, it's like if you're wearing a mask, yeah, which is so basically something's hiding your true face, in order for you to see the mask, you have to take the mask off. Yeah. And kind of the second initiation is like you take the mask off and you look at it. And it's like, in a certain way, another analogy, it's like you're seeing your own reflection and it's not pretty. Yeah. You see yourself. You see all the things that you really did not want to fucking see for a really long time. And the test of it is, can you not look away? Yeah. Can you be honest? Can you stay with your commitment to soul and to truth and to integrity and to love, even when it fucking hurts? And it's, you'll probably get tested and poked by life in your most vulnerable areas, in the things you find scariest, in the things you find most sensitive, the things you're most afraid to lose, right? And can you stay? Can you not leave the battlefield of love, basically, in that? To do that, there needs to be a touch of monadic will. And that's what turns the corner in probably what I would say is like halfway through in the deepest valley of the second initiatory process. What turns the corner for the being is they need to access a deeper power to stand in that challenge. And it's why it's said that is the first point, really, that there's a real kind of pulse of monadic power that comes online that breaks the hold of the emotional body on the soul, right? And it's that, he calls it in this transmission, it's the evocation of the will. So let's zoom out again. And basically from that point forward, the being continues to do their work and find their way out of the valley, but it's not so hard anymore, right? Because there's, and you learn to love. It's like in this, you have to access a deeper part of yourself, which is the love of the soul. But the gift is that that love then flows back into all those traumatized parts. Like you then actually, you're not just pledged to living from that place in terms of your outer life, but what you pledge yourself to becomes the source of redemption for the parts of you that have been tortured and traumatized. Like we become Christ to our own humanity. You know? And so let's zoom out. Like that's the process for the planet as a whole. Yeah. So all of this stuff, the existence of Shambhala school, these link ups between Earth, Sun, galactic center, and a bunch of us beings on Earth being like, oh, that feels important, right? All of that is representative of this burst of the will that comes from the monad in the deep dark valley of the second initiation, that breaks the soul free from identification with the emotional body so that it can then pour its love back into it. Yeah? So that's the planetary process that's happening right now. And DK says, like, yeah, you know, like what happens for a being once they've kind of been through that process enough is, and it's often a process that to a certain degree you go through alone. Like you may have deep connections with other beings who've been through this or who have their own version of it or who are soul connected. But it's kind of part of it that it's a kind of purifying dimension of the process, that it's just you know, in that place where you say what you're committed to, even in the face of what's most frightening to you or most painful or most sensitive. And that purifies you deeply. And what often happens for a being is their life actually then starts to lead out into more and more deep connection with their soul family and with their soul tribe and with others who've also been through that experience or who are going through it. And DK makes the point, like, that's why he's given this whole teaching around other civilizations, because that's the process for Earth. Yeah. So as Earth finds its way through this deepest valley of the second cosmic initiation, same process, actually it starts to link up with the beings, the civilizations, the other planetary lives, which are already our soul family, but we haven't connected with yet. Yeah. So, and he also says that this is really the nature of the process that's happening between the year 2000 and 2049. He says this is why his ashram has been deeply focusing on raising humanity's consciousness over the last 200 years so that it's ready for this process. He says that, as we've heard before, like the epicenter, the core of this process is 2025 and really this current decade that we've entered, 2020 to 2030. And he says that for those beings on the planet who are not on the path, this will be a time of deep upheaval, pain, and chaos. Deep upheaval, pain, and chaos, because they won't know what's happening. Right? They won't be able to see or relate to the deep spiritual process that's going on. Just like imagine like any part of you that's been in the deep fucking dark valley of that second initiatory process, and you know, it's been a fucking hard day and you're tired and you just cannot connect to or stay connected to this being actually a deep and valuable spiritual process, and plus you just want out, right? That's maybe, you know, how a lot of human beings are going to be who are not actually connected to the deep spiritual significance of what all of this represents. But he says for those on the path, and he says for those for those millions of beings, many millions of beings around the planet who already have moved through the second initiation, and for the hundreds of millions who will move through the second initiation over the course of the next 10 years, that's a big deal. Like for hundreds of millions of beings around the planet to move through the second initiation over the next 10 years or so, that's huge. Yeah, just that involves like major shifts, involves like what is going on this planet, you know? Because like, I don't know about you, but like just think about it, like in my world, as I look out over the spiritual field that I'm connected to, there are so many beings that I'm aware of who are in that. Yeah, who are in that. Are they deeply pledged to their path? Yes. Are they deeply pledged to their soul? Yes. Are they all in? Yes. Are they deep in the valleys of their own pain and trauma in a way that knocks them down? Often, yes. You know, and actually, like where they're wading through the mud of their own pain in a way which stops them really feeling free and being able to feel that they can fully show up as who they want to show up as. Yes. Think about what would happen. There's so many beings who are in that, right? Think about how would happen on the planet if those beings got to that point where like, okay, I'm mostly done with that process and now I'm feeling pretty available to the flow of my soul into the world. Let's do it. You know? So we're talking hundreds of millions of beings. And yeah. So and then he goes into some other stuff which I'll go into in a minute. So I want to have the first small group breakout now. And I want to just say a couple more words about this, the second initiation. So I have found, like, for instance, in my session work with people, particularly when I've been doing this kind of soul-based leadership stuff recently, most people who reach out to me are in this process. And something I've kind of witnessed over the years of doing this type of work with people is that there's certain pieces of this transition which are just part of this second initiatory process. It's one initiation, but it has different facets, and all of them involve giving your life to soul. You know, so one facet is like unfolding what your soul purpose is and committing yourself to it. Another is being in your personal healing journey and committing yourself to it. Another is updates that happen around your sense of family and community and home. Another is the type of relationships that you're a part of, right? So another is your relationship to money, you know, and what you earn your money from and so on. So all of these pieces, a being will be tested around in this process. And what the invitation is for them to give all of their life to their soul. That doesn't mean yet that they're fully operating from soul all the time, but it means like the nature of the experience, folks, is, and there's a rule to this, when you give what is yours to your soul can then operate through it. You know? So when you give the direction of your life to your soul and your time and your energy and what you're choosing to spend your time on, your soul can then operate through that. When you give your heart to your soul can operate through that. When you give your eros to your soul can operate through that and bring you into contact with those beings who it's your destiny to create with and to and energize your creativity. When you give your money to your soul can operate through your money. You know? And as we go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, we're challenging more and more of the fundamental survival drives in the human being, which believe, even if our consciousness has come to something else, but these parts of us believe, I'm alone and I'm isolated in an unfriendly universe, and I need to fucking protect myself or the universe is going to fuck me. You know? So they're mostly unconscious parts, and they live in our lower chakras, and they're going to be tested with this process of giving more and more of our life to our soul. So And this leads to when the being completes the third initiation, where the soul has fully landed in the base, because this stuff has been worked through enough. So the question that I want to drop into your breakout rooms is like, where are you in this process? Like, where are you in this process? And you can particularly look at it in terms of like just the basic piece of giving your life to your soul and moving through the healing that's necessary to be able to live what your soul wants to pour through you. Yeah. And you can include any of the other bits that I mentioned as well if you feel the impulse. We clear? Okay. So 2 minutes, and yeah, I'll give you instructions as regular. Yeah, beautiful. So maybe something I can just comment about that is it's like, okay, so there's the personality realm, right? The personality frequency of life. And that's your personality, my personality, other people's personality, the whole of culture, human culture is basically based on that. And it fundamentally is driven by the law of survival. Yeah. How can we survive in a way which is best? I've best survived. Yeah. Had a nice family, nice house, nice job. I survived well, like it's about best survival. Yeah. But it's driven by survival, and fundamentally it's driven by survival fear. Then you've got like the soul realm, yeah, and you've got the monadic realm. Now, thing is, everything from the soul realm up is basically operating through an interconnected network of the universe's synchronistic intelligence, love, wisdom, presence. Yes, right? So when you're operating, when some part of your life is operating from out of that, it's operating through the interconnected intelligence of the loving field that has the capacity for magic and synchronicity to make you meet those people when you're supposed to meet them and be in those places that you're supposed to be in and at the right time and have those opportunities land because you're not operating out of a field where you're an isolated individual anymore, right? Because it's hooked up into these deeper layers that are plugged in. So when you have an individual who is on the edge of offering, for instance, let's say, what they choose to make their purpose up to their soul, and they're surrounded by a bunch of other people who have no awareness that that realm even exists, like the idea is that they're like, you're fucking crazy. Like, why would you do that? Why would you do something so stupid as to unplug from the tried and tested methods of survival in the personality realm, right? Where you can get a steady job and, be part of the workforce and part of the economic machine and so on. Why on earth would you risk all of that? You could even marry someone who might like you and be nice to you, right? Why would you risk all of that for this woo-woo thing of giving yourself to your soul? And the thing is, like, that's a legitimate perspective for someone who doesn't actually know that there is more, that operates in an entirely different way. But when someone does throw their anchor in soul, whether it's their purpose, their eros, their heart, their money, whatever, when they throw their anchor into that, the laws and ways of operating of the soul realm begin to be able to operate through that, right? So actually, they transition into a frequency of the universe which is living according to some different laws. And those laws are synchronicity, grace, interconnected loving intelligence, wisdom that seems to pervade a bunch of stuff and have the right shit happen at the right time, even if that's the hard stuff. So yeah, I just want to say that because it's like this is a deep part of the second initiation, and it's something that's so hard and challenging for people because they're often not surrounded by so many people who get what this is. And once you've made the jump, like, oh yeah, they're making the jump so that they're anchoring in the soul realm, and that's what's going to operate through. And it's like, and it's trustable. It's a different kind of safety. It's not safety that will assure you that I can tell you exactly what your pay grade is going to look like in 8 months' time because you're going to hold exactly the same role because it all works that way. But you're anchored in a deeper safety, which is actually you're supported because you are linked into the fundamental abundance of life and love and intelligence of the universe. So, little thing, the second initiation. Okay, so we're going to move into the next bit now. Okay, so he then says, so we've talked about this, there's hundreds and millions of second degree initiates who are going to emerge over the course of this, over the course of these next 10 years and up until 2050, or 2049, or 2050 more broadly. And he says there's a deep resonance between those hundreds of millions of second degree initiates and the emerging fourth degree initiates, who he's mentioned before a couple of times in these transmissions. He said that something that's really fucking deep and important about what's happening in this whole process is there will be a group of fourth degree initiates who emerge who basically are holding Shambhala energy as an anchored frequency within humanity. There's a link between the second degree initiates who are emerging, those emerging fourth degree initiates, and the sixth degree initiates in Shambhala. So DK is actually understood to be a sixth degree initiate, which, you know, and this is a kind of funny intimate thing, right? Like in the Bailey stuff, he was referred to as a fifth degree initiate. And then when Bruce's stuff came out, he's referred to as a sixth degree initiate. And I've always actually wanted to like say, this even reminds me, like, just get in touch with Bruce and be like, let's just throw him a little party, right? Like, or something like that. Because like this being has obviously gone through a deep, significant transition. We never talk about it, but it's a big deal. He's given us a lot. Maybe we can give back a little bit, right? And just be like, dude, congrats. You know, we see you. So maybe something that needs a little 6th degree initiation DK party. We could totally do that actually in Shambhala school. That would be so sweet. That would be funny and sweet. And then imagine if that was referenced in the next transmission. It would be like, you know, all like the cosmic shit, and you're like, thanks for the party. So it's like one thing is to like throw the antenna of your consciousness up into the higher worlds and see if your process can influence the greater process, and does the transmission relate to this thing which you've been in deeply. Another thing to do is like, let's just throw in a party. So he's a 6th degree initiate, right? So, and you know, and the 6th degree initiates are called Chohans. Like 5th degree initiates are called masters, 6th degree initiates are called Chohans. And they, you know, 6th degree initiate is anchored on the 6th plane, the monadic plane. So these are beings who are operating out of monad. So they are operating out of the dark light. And he says that there's this significant link up that's happening in the planetary process between the 6th degree initiates in Shambhala, the emerging 4th degree initiates, and these emerging hundreds of millions of 2nd degree initiates. Now, for me, what that deeply represents, I don't know if any of you guys have ever done this heart identification meditation, which was given through his work with Bruce, but it's all about the layers of the heart chakra, right? And it talks about like, we go through the personal layer of the heart, and then into the soul layer of the heart, and then into the dark light monadic layer of the heart. He's talking in terms of these 3 beings about the planetary heart. Like these are the beings who embody the personal, the opened personal heart of humanity. Those 2nd degree, hundreds of millions of 2nd degree initiates are going to be the beating personal heart of the earth, you know? And those emerging 4th degree initiates are going to be the beating soul heart of the earth that's open to the monadic transmission from Shambhala and pouring that out into the earth as a whole. And those 6th degree initiates in Shambhala that he mentions are the dark core of that heart, the dark core of that planetary heart. So he's talking about the planet scale process of the full activation of the planetary heart. And he then starts to go into the stuff like, and I find this like super interesting. We'll see if you do too, I'm not sure. Like, but he goes into talking about how, I think it was in the previous transmission, he referenced that the physical correspondences. So we know that when a being, when you or I is working with dark light energy, that the three centers, like at the beginning of this meditation, that are that's most related to are crown, heart, and base, right? Why? Because we have the seed of the dark light in the core of the soul, anchors in the crown, the seed of the dark light, which is the kind of dark light source in the body, is in the base, and the monad anchors directly into the heart chakra by this thing that we have spoken about before called the sutratma. So it's crown, heart, base. So he then says, like, the physical correspondences to crown, heart, base on the earth are the North Pole, the South Pole, and the core of the earth. Right? So who here, raise your hand if you've ever seen one of those pictures or maybe a video that shows like the earth, like the geomagnetic fields of the earth, where you see the earth and then it has this like woo like thing, like, and you know, it's like the pulse of these little dots, like it's like the positively charged ions and negatively charged ions that are whirling through the magnetic field of the earth all the time. And two really significant points in that are the North Pole and the South Pole of the earth. Now, there's a difference between the geographical North Pole and South Pole, which is just like the Arctic and Antarctica. Look at a globe, look in the middle bit at the top, North Pole, middle bit at the bottom, South Pole. Those are the geographical. It basically means nothing. It basically means like we just say that's where it is because that's, you know, like where it is in the circle thing of a globe. The magnetic North Pole and the magnetic South Pole are different. They are where the energy field of the earth is actually doing that North Pole bit, and where the energy field of the earth is actually doing that South Pole bit, which are actually different from the geographical North Pole and South Pole, right? Now, an interesting thing as well, I think maybe I chatted about this last week, but is that the North Pole has been shifting and wandering and changing at a very high speed, actually, since the 1990s, where it was in the very north part of Canada, and it's been wandering over towards Siberia. And my guess is it's going to go to Shambhala, like it's going to go to the Gobi Desert, where we understand the teachings say that Shambhala exists in etheric matter above the Gobi Desert. Why? Because Shambhala, one aspect of Shambhala represents the crown chakra of the planet, and that is the magnetic North Pole. So he's saying, like, the crown chakra of the planet relates to the magnetic North Pole of the planet. The base chakra of the planet relates to the magnetic South Pole of the planet. And the heart chakra, the deep core of the heart chakra of the planet, relates to the core of the earth. So this is where we're starting, and he builds on this a lot in the transmission that just came through today. He's really obviously like inviting us into relating to and working with the earth as an energetic being. He's taking us deeper, and not, I mean, there's a lot of that we've been able to do, you know, for millennia. Like he talks about like the ley lines, like the points of sacred sites on the planet and the ley lines that exist between them and so on. He basically says like all of these are leftovers from the last dispensation, the last run of the mystery schools in ancient times, where human beings whose consciousness was open to the cosmos were bringing the cosmic truths down onto the planet. And you know, it's like, of course, you guys all know that there's this fucking crazy, interesting, bizarre, mysterious thing. Like a lot of the ancient temples were actually aligned on the planet with constellations. Yeah. So we know that there's a whole thing to do with the Giza pyramid complex that actually it seems like a major significant date for their construction was around 10,500 BC. Why do we know that? Well, we know that because strangely, bizarrely, interestingly, at exactly around 10,500 BC, the three pyramids of the Giza Plateau are perfectly aligned with the three stars of Orion's belt. And not just that, and not just perfectly aligned with the three stars of Orion's belt, but the shafts inside the pyramid, which basically were like, let's make a little window so we can have particular cosmic energy stream right through into that person's body mind when they're going through an initiation process. Those windows, those shafts, are perfectly aligned with Draco and the Great Bear. Great Bear, understood to embody the crown chakra of the wider cosmic being that we're in, and Draco, understood to embody the base chakra of the great being that we're in, and Orion, hey presto, the heart chakra, right? So that's just one example. There's many others, like Angkor Wat, like many others of these temples that were aligned with constellations. And that's because the focus of the ancient mystery schools was the soul, was light, and the outer symbol for that is the are stars and the suns and the constellations and so on. What's landing now is the dark light grid, right? So I'll get into that in a minute, but he starts by talking about like the significant pieces when we're relating to Earth, not just about like the ley lines and basically the light grid of the Earth, which has already been laid down by the ancient mystery schools, but the dark grid of the Earth, basically. So with the dark light energy anchoring, first of all, we talk about the crown, the heart, and the base. North Pole, core of the Earth, South Pole. So yeah, and that's really interesting because actually, like in a lot of our circles, we've often spoken about the core of the Earth like a base chakra. And this is where you kind of like, I don't know if you're interested in this in the way that I'm interested in this, but like it's both, right? And this is actually where it starts to get into the mysteries that he goes into today, which is like, it's the heart chakra of the Earth, where just like in your heart chakra, your monadic energy is anchored. And it's said in one of the teachings that the heart chakra is like the base of the monadic system. So the monadic system in a being is like monad, core of the soul, heart chakra. And that's like when you saw me post this thing the other day, maybe you saw it, right? It was like the Sutratma, cosmic Sutratma, and the Shambhala is a threefold center. The monad anchors in your being from itself on the higher planes, and it pours its energy through the core of your soul and then anchors in your heart chakra, right? That's why we work so much with the heart chakra. And from there, it goes boink, up and down. It goes to the crown and goes to the base. But anchors first in the heart. So, so the invitation here is to start to relate to the core of the Earth as where the Earth's monadic energy is anchored. And interestingly, like this is super interesting, right? He says in his work with Bruce like years ago in 2007, not just are we on the verge of discovering that there's actually a black hole at the core of everything, right? So there's a black hole at the core of every atom. There's a black hole at the core of a galaxy. It's like, but actually there's a black hole at the core of the sun and there's a black hole at the core of the Earth. So we don't know much about the core of the Earth, right? Like it's a long way down and it's very, 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 very hot. Yeah. We know that there's a liquid iron core that is whirling in liquid fire, basically, that produces massively intense electric fields and magnetic fields. What he said in 2007 was right at the core of that is a black hole. Interestingly, and you can find the link to this in that piece that I just mentioned that I wrote the other day, last year, there started to emerge some scientific papers suggesting that there really is a black hole at the core of the Earth. So what's that in you? That's where there's a black hole at the core of your heart chakra, right? Which is the anchoring point for the dark light energy of your monad in your heart. So the invitation here is you are an Earth. I'm an Earth. This body-mind thing is an Earth. It's got a North Pole. It's got a South Pole. It's got a core. The core is where my monadic energy is anchored after it passes through my soul and back to the monad. And we start to relate to the Earth as an energetic being. And actually, this is an Earth too. These are all Earths, your Earth, so on. And yeah, and then he starts to talk about land and human beings' relationship to land. And he points out, like, just as with the case with the human beings who anchored the light grid with the ancient mystery schools, human beings always, and this is deep, right? It says human beings always serve the same purpose, which is to bridge spirit and matter, as soul to bridge spirit and matter. But he also makes the point, hey, I'm not just talking about human earth humanity, I'm talking about humanity as it shows up across different civilizations across the galaxy. Because humanity is just a term that relates to the fourth kingdom in nature in any evolutionary sphere. So that could be like humanity on some planet circling Alpha Centauri, right? Like, why is it humanity? Because it's the fourth kingdom and of seven, which are they all in embodied physical matter? Maybe not. Does it matter? No, right? It's still like the fourth, and the job of the fourth kingdom is always to bridge spirit and matter. So then we get into crystals. Yeah. So we get into the new agey bit. So he then says, because the role of human beings is to bridge spirit and matter, and because actually the enchantment and the beauty and the romance of human relationship with land is at its core are about our ability to be this bridge between spirit and the fertility and the aliveness of the land, and to also be a bridge for the fertility and the aliveness of the land back into the higher realms. There's a deep relationship between Shambhala, humanity, and the mineral kingdom, right? Because the mineral kingdom is like the first kingdom, Shambhala is like the seventh, and humanity is the fourth. So it's like crown, heart, base, you know? And then he gives this whole thing about, and this is the last point that I'll make today before doing a final breakout thing, but he's talking about the emergence of the temples and the emergence of the sacred sites of the New Age. And he says that this will be a dark grid, not a light grid. And unlike the light grid, where the streams of energy go through the subtle energy fields around the earth, the dark grid will penetrate the physical matter of the earth and will actually, where different points, different temples will be located in particular places, because there will be lines of dark light energy which go from one side of the earth straight to the other side of the earth, through the interior of the earth, through the core of the earth, right? And he says that that is a kind of physical level version of why it's always been said in the teachings before that every mystery school that will emerge, whatever ray it's on, will have its core in Shambhala. Why? Because actually it will have an energetic, it will be an energetic eruption of the dark light from the core of the earth on a particular location of the crust of the earth, and it will be linked with a school on the other side of the earth directly through the core, through the physical substance of the earth. So he then says that for those who, for these places, and for any places where we feel in our hearts and in our souls called to be bridges for the energy of the dark light and the revelation of the one through our human souls into and up from matter, we can facilitate that process by planting crystals, right? And we can facilitate that process by planting crystals because we take these, we engage in our own experience this seventh kingdom Shambhala to fourth kingdom humanity to first kingdom mineral kingdom crown heart base relationship, charge these crystals as we raise them into our soul field and to be energized by the revelation of the one and its electric purpose and power and love from Shambhala, and plant them in the earth in a way which can contribute to the flowering and the manifestation, the physical manifestation of whether it's dark light temples or whether it's whatever manifestations are part of the new dark light culture. So we're given a little key and an invitation about how to play our role and facilitate dark light manifestation as part of the Aquarian seventh ray age that's just dawning. And then he says, a good opportunity to start that was the solstice, and is the 2025 as it's coming, and all the stuff that we're into now. So I would like to invite you guys to now just have a final little sharing with each other on your experience of the solstice. And like, because we basically we passed through a portal where, you know, you've heard me say a bunch of stuff for a while about why this time is super important, and yeah, that it's a beginning of the opportunity for us to kind of calibrate our instrument to be able to receive and work with dark light energy in a way that's important for how we're going to go on doing this work. And it, you know, it's been described as a transition point for the landing and emergence of the energies which are going to play a really powerful transformational role in the coming years. So, you know, if you sat at home on your sofa and if you watch game shows, like, it's okay, right? But like on that solstice night. But what I would like to ask for you to share is what touched you most deeply? Like, what touched you most deeply about anything you connected to around the solstice portal? Okay. Okay. And then we'll come back and we'll close up. Okay. So you're back in your rooms. Okay. So that is our little adventure for today. Good to be with you all. Yeah, and the vision that really is present for me as I come out of being with this transmission is just like, what will human culture look like as we all increasingly relate to the earth as an energetic being that we're a part of, and that has its link up into the cosmos and is about the revelation of something profound through the one that vibrates the core of all of us, and all of us are expressions of the earth in our bodies and in our souls, and expressions of the cosmos in our spirit. And yeah, so maybe go deeper in that feeling, in that contemplation. Okay, so until next time, same time next week, and there's other adventures which you'll join as you wish, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.